The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the overcast sky as Alex navigated his beat-up Honda through the evening rush. It was just past 5, earlier than his usual grind at the software firm downtown, but a server crash had sent half the team home with promises of remote fixes. He wiped condensation from the windshield, his mind already drifting to the weekend plans he'd half forgotten to mention to Jamie. 5 years married, and somehow the little thing still felt new, her laugh echoing through their cramped Queen Anne apartment, the way she'd surprise him with takeout from that Thai place on the corner. He parallel parked with a sigh, the engine ticking as it cooled. The neighborhood was alive with the hum of distant traffic and the patter of rain on awnings. Their building, a faded brick walk-up from the 90s, loomed ahead, its fire escape ladders dripping like metallic veins. Alex grabbed his messenger bag, slung it over his shoulder, and dashed through the drizzle, keyring jangling. The lobby smelled of damp carpet and someone's lingering curry dinner. He took the stairs 2 at a time, avoiding the creaky elevator, his sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. As he reached the 3rd floor, a familiar ache tugged at his lower back. Too many hours hunched over code. He paused at the door to their unit, 3B, fishing for his keys. Through the thin wood he caught the muffled thump of music, something upbeat with a bass line that vibrated faintly. Jamie must have beaten him home. She worked shifts at the hospital, but today was supposed to be light. A smile crept onto his face. Maybe she'd started dinner early. He turned the key quietly, not wanting to startle her if she was napping. The door swung open to the narrow hallway, cluttered with their shared chaos. A stack of unopened mail on the side table, Jamie's nursing scrubs draped over a chair, his running shoes kicked off haphazardly by the coat rack. The air inside was warmer than the hallway, carrying a faint scent of vanilla candle, her favorite from that boutique in Pike Place. Alex shrugged off his jacket, hanging it on the hook, and padded toward the living room. The music grew clearer, a pop track he vaguely recognized, mixed with voices, laughter specifically, not just Jamie's. He froze mid-step, his bag slipping from his shoulder to the floor with a soft thud. The laughter came again, light and flirtatious, cutting through the melody like a shard of glass. It wasn't Jamie's, hers was deeper, more of a chuckle that built from her chest. This was higher, breathier, the kind that dissolved into giggles. From the bedroom, their bedroom, Alex's pulse quickened, a cold knot forming in his gut. He told himself it was nothing, maybe a podcast, or one of her friends dropping by unannounced. But the door to the bedroom was ajar, spilling a sliver of warm light into the dim hallway. He crept forward, socks silent on the hardwood, every creak of the floorboards amplified in his ears. The laughter swelled again, intertwined with a man's voice, low, teasing, unmistakably familiar. Jamie's voice? No, not quite. It was intimate. Too intimate. He pushed the door open just enough to peer inside, his breath catching. The room was a mess of afternoon disarray, sheets rumpled on the unmade bed, Jamie's robe pooled on the floor like discarded skin. And there, silhouetted against the window where the rain streaked the glass, was Mark, his best friend from college, the one who'd crashed on their couch more times than he could count. Mark, with his easy grin and perpetual stubble, shirt unbuttoned halfway down his chest, leaning against the dresser, and laughing with him, her head thrown back in that carefree way Alex hadn't seen in months, was a woman he didn't recognize. Sleek dark hair cascading over her shoulders, a red blouse clinging to her frame, her hand resting casually on Mark's arm. "What the—" The words escaped Alex's lips before he could stop them, the door banging fully open under his shove. The laughter died instantly. The woman's eyes widened, her hand dropping like it burned. Mark spun around, color draining from his face, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on dry land. "Alex? Dude, you're early." Jamie. Where was Jamie? Alex's mind raced, scanning the room again. The bed was empty, but the closet door hung slightly open, and there, stuffed behind a row of hanging clothes, her face pale and stricken, was Jamie. His wife, crouched in the shadows, her eyes meeting his for a split second before darting away in horror. The woman, blonde, mid-30s with a smudge of lipstick on her collar, stepped back, clutching her purse like a shield. "I should go," she muttered, but Alex barely registered her. His world had narrowed to Mark's fumbling hands, buttoning his shirt and Jamie's trembling form emerging slowly from the closet. Her scrubs wrinkled as if she'd just pulled them on. "Alex, wait," Jamie whispered, her voice cracking. She reached for him, but he jerked away, the betrayal hitting like a punch to the chest. Rain hammered the window harder now, mirroring the storm building inside him. How long? Why here? And Mark, of all people. Mark straightened, his usual charm cracking under the weight of the moment. "It's not what it looks like, man. We were just talking," Alex spat, his voice rising, raw and unsteady. The room felt too small, the air thick with unspoken accusations. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words lodged in his throat. Instead, he stood there, fists clenched, as the first tears burned his eyes. The woman slipped past him toward the door, her heels clicking urgently, but no one moved to stop her. Jamie stepped closer, her face a mask of guilt and desperation. "Please, let's talk. I can explain." But explanations felt like lies already forming. Alex's mind flashed to their wedding day, the quiet promises exchanged under Seattle's perpetual grey skies. To the late nights he'd worked to build a life for them, the way she'd held him through his doubts. And now this, laughter in their bedroom, secrets hiding in closets. He turned on his heel, storming back to the living room, the music still playing mockingly from the speakers. His bag lay forgotten on the floor, a symbol of the normalcy shattered in an instant. Behind him, Jamie's sobs began soft at first, then building like the rain outside. Mark muttered something incoherent, but Alex didn't care. The door to the apartment slammed as he grabbed his jacket again, needing air, needing escape. The hallway blurred through his tears, the weight of it all crashing down. How did they get here? And what came next? The rain had turned relentless by the time Alex hit the street, sheets of it slashing sideways like accusations he couldn't outrun. Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood blurred into a watercolor mess, neon signs from the corner pub flickering through the downpour, the distant wail of a ferry horn cutting across Puget Sound. He didn't have an umbrella, didn't care. His jacket clung to him like a second skin, soaked through in seconds, but the chill outside was nothing compared to the ice in his veins. He walked aimlessly at first, hands shoved deep in his pockets, fists balled against the urge to punch something, anything. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Jamie, no doubt. He yanked it out, the screen lighting up her contact photo. Them on a hike up to Rattlesnake Ledge last summer, her smiling with wind-tousled hair, him looking awkward but happy. The sight twisted the knife deeper. He silenced it, shoving the phone back. Mark's betrayal burned hottest, though. They'd been roommates in college, shared everything from bad breakups to that startup flop in the early days of the tech boom. Mark, the guy who'd toasted at their wedding, promising to always have Alex's back. And now, laughing in their bed with some stranger while Jamie hid like a guilty secret. Alex ducked into a dive bar on the next block. The Rusty Anchor, its faded sign swinging like a pendulum in the wind. The place was a Seattle staple, dim lights, sticky floors, the faint tang of stale beer and fried calamari hanging in the air. A handful of regulars hunched over the bar, eyes glued to a Mariners game on the TV, oblivious to the storm raging outside or the one tearing him apart inside. He slid onto a stool at the far end, away from the chatter, and ordered a whiskey neat from the bartender, a grizzled woman named Rita who'd poured for him a few times before. "Rough day?" she asked, sliding the glass over with a knowing nod. Her voice was gravelly, honed by years of late nights and chain-smoking breaks. "You could say that," Alex muttered, downing half the drink in one go. It burned going down, a welcome distraction from the lump in his throat. He stared at the amber liquid swirling in the glass, memories flooding back unbidden. Jamie and he had met at a hospital fundraiser 5 years ago. He'd been dragged there by a co-worker. She was volunteering as a nurse. She'd spilled a tray of hors d'oeuvres on his shoes, laughed it off with that deep, infectious chuckle, and somehow that turned into coffee dates, then late-night talks about dreams deferred. Her shifts were brutal, his job a grind of debugging code for faceless clients, but they'd built something solid, or so he'd thought. The door banged open, letting in a gust of wet wind, and Alex glanced up. It was Tom, an old co-worker from the software firm, shaking rain from his hoodie like a dog. Tom spotted him immediately, his face lighting up with surprise. "Alex! Man, what are you doing here? Thought you were on early out today." Alex forced a shrug, but it came out more like a wince. "Needed a drink." "You?" "Same. Servers still down. Boss is on a rampage via email." Tom pulled up a stool, signaling Rita for a beer. He was the reliable type. Divorced last year after his wife left for a guy in Portland, but he'd bounced back with dad jokes and weekend hikes. "You look like hell, buddy. Everything okay?" The whiskey loosened Alex's tongue just enough. He hesitated, then the words tumbled out. The early arrival, the laughter, the scene in the bedroom. Mark's fumbling excuse, Jamie's wide-eyed panic from the closet. Tom's eyes widened as Alex spoke, his beer forgotten midway to his mouth. "Jesus, Alex, that's messed up. Mark, of all people." Tom shook his head, running a hand through his damp hair. "What are you going to do? Confront them? Kick his ass?" Alex laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the bar's low hum. "I don't know. Part of me wants to go back and throw him out the window. But Jamie, she looked so scared, like she'd been caught in something bigger than her." He drained the glass, the warmth spreading, but doing little to thaw the confusion. Was it an affair? A one-time thing? Or had Mark been circling their marriage for months, waiting for Alex to look away? Rita refilled his drink without asking, her expression sympathetic but detached, the bartender's code. "Take it from someone who's seen 100 of these," she said quietly, leaning on the bar. "Rushing in hot doesn't fix the hurt. Give it space. Figure out what you want first." Tom nodded, clapping Alex on the shoulder. "She's right. Remember when my ex pulled that crap? I went nuclear right away, yelled, packed her stuff, regretted it for months. Talk to Jamie alone, without Mark's smug face in the mix. And hey, if you need a couch, mine's free, no questions." The offer hung there, simple and steady, cutting through the chaos in Alex's head. For the first time since storming out, he felt a sliver of ground under his feet, not solid but enough to stand on. The rain pounded the bar's windows, mirroring the turmoil, but inside, the weight shifted slightly. He wasn't alone in this mess, not entirely. His phone buzzed again, Jamie this time, a text. "Please come home, I love you, we need to talk." He stared at it, thumb hovering over the reply button. The Mariners scored on the TV, the crowd murmuring approval, a stark contrast to his unraveling world. Part of him wanted to believe her, to rewind to before the laughter, before the closet shadows. But trust, once cracked, didn't mend easy. "I think I need another round," Alex said finally, his voice steadier. Tom grinned, raising his glass. "To figuring it out," Tom toasted. Alex clinked his glass, the whiskey's bite sharpening his resolve. Whatever came next, confrontation, separation, or something in between, he'd face it on his terms. The storm outside raged on, but for now, in this dimly lit haven, he could breathe. The night stretched ahead, full of hard choices, but with friends like Tom pulling him back from the edge, maybe he could navigate the wreckage without drowning. The whiskey's haze lingered as Alex pushed through the bar door hours later, the rain now a steady drizzle that painted the sidewalks in glossy black. Seattle's night had settled in, the Queen Anne streets quieter now, punctuated by the occasional whoosh of tires on wet pavement and the distant rumble of the monorail. Streetlights cast long, wavering shadows, mirroring the uncertainty churning in his gut. Tom's words echoed, "Give it space. Talk to Jamie alone." But the pull of home was magnetic, a gravity he couldn't shake. He needed answers, not more drinks. His phone had gone silent after that last text from Jamie, but the unread messages piled up like unspoken regrets. He trudged up the hill toward their building, the incline making his legs burn, each step heavier than the last. The air smelled of wet earth and exhaust, the kind of scent that seeped into your bones on a Pacific Northwest evening. His mind replayed the scene in fragments, the woman's startled gasp, Mark's pale face, Jamie's eyes wide with something that looked like fear more than guilt. Why hide? If it was her affair, why cower while Mark flirted with a stranger? The pieces didn't fit, and that dissonance gnawed at him worse than outright betrayal. The lobby light buzzed faintly as he entered, The curry smell faded to a ghost. He climbed the stairs slowly this time, no energy left for rushing. At the door to 3B he hesitated, key in hand, listening. Silence, broken only by the faint drip of a leak somewhere in the walls. No music, no laughter. Just the hollow quiet of a home turned battlefield. He turned the key and stepped inside, the warmth hitting him like an unwelcome embrace. The living room was dim, lit by a single lamp on the side table, casting elongated shadows over the cluttered space. His bag still lay where he'd dropped it earlier, a lonely sentinel. "Alex?" Jamie's voice came from the kitchen, soft and tentative, like she was afraid to startle a wild animal. She emerged wiping her hands on a dish towel, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore the same wrinkled scrubs from before, but now they hung looser, as if the weight of the day had deflated her. No sign of Mark. The apartment felt emptier without his intrusive presence. He closed the door behind him with a deliberate click, leaning against it for support. The knot in his chest tightened, words failing him at first. "Where is he?" Alex finally managed, his voice rough from the bar and the tears he'd swallowed. "Gone. As soon as you left, he grabbed his stuff and bolted. Said he'd call you tomorrow." Jamie's gaze dropped to the floor, twisting the towel in her hands. She looked smaller, vulnerable in a way that tugged at his old instincts to protect her, but the image of her in the closet burned too fresh. "Alex, please sit. I don't even know where to start." He moved to the couch, sinking into the cushions that still smelled faintly of her lavender shampoo. The rain tapped against the window like impatient fingers, urging the truth out. Jamie perched on the coffee table across from him, close enough to touch but worlds apart. Her hands trembled as she set the towel aside. "That woman, her name's Lisa. She's Mark's co-worker. They've been seeing each other for a couple months, casually," he said. "But today he showed up here unannounced, said he needed a place to talk because his roommate was home. I let him in because he's your friend, Alex. I thought it was nothing." Alex's jaw clenched, the whiskey souring in his stomach. "And the closet? You hid like a kid caught stealing cookies. What the hell, Jamie?" Her face crumpled, tears spilling over. She swiped at them angrily, her nurse's composure cracking. "I came home early too. My shift ended sooner than expected. I walked in on them. On the bed, laughing, half-dressed. It was like a nightmare. Mark jumped up, stammering excuses, and Lisa just froze. I panicked, yelled at them to get out, but Mark begged me not to tell you yet, said it would ruin everything. He pulled me into the closet whispering that you'd be home soon, that we could figure out how to break it gently. Lisa was buttoning her shirt, acting like it was no big deal. Then you came in." The words hung heavy, each one a brick in the wall rebuilding between them. Alex rubbed his temples, the room spinning slightly from the alcohol and the revelation. Not Jamie's affair, Mark's mess spilling into their life. Relief flickered, fragile and fleeting, overshadowed by the violation, their bed, their sanctuary, tainted by his best friend's indiscretion. "Why didn't you just tell me right then? Kick him out? Call me?" "I was in shock," she whispered, reaching for his hand. He let her take it this time, her fingers cool and clammy against his. "Seeing Mark like that with her in our room, it hit me how much he's changed. Or maybe I never really knew him, and I didn't want to be the one to shatter your friendship. You've been so stressed with work the late nights. I thought I could handle it quietly, stupid, I know." Alex pulled his hand away gently, standing to pace the small living room. The hardwood creaked under his socks, the sound grounding him amid the emotional whirl. Outside, a car horn blared, sharp and intrusive, echoing his frustration. Mark's face flashed in his mind, the easy grin at barbecues, the late-night gaming sessions that had bonded them through the years. Betrayal came in layers, the affair itself, using their home as a hideout, dragging Jamie into the deceit, and the laughter, carefree, oblivious, while his world teetered. "I need to talk to him," Alex said, stopping by the window to stare at the rain-smeared view of the city lights twinkling below. The Space Needle pierced the cloudy sky in the distance, a steadfast icon amid the gloom. Face to face, no more hiding. Jamie nodded, standing too, her presence a quiet anchor. "I'm coming with you. We do this together." Her voice steadied, the guilt shifting to resolve. For the first time that night, Alex saw the partner he'd married, the one who faced down emergencies in the ER without flinching. This was her element: crisis, containment, healing. He turned to her, the distance between them narrowing just a fraction. "Okay, but tomorrow. I can't do this soaked and half-drunk." A ghost of a smile tugged at her lips, and she stepped closer, wrapping her arms around his waist. He hesitated, then held her, the familiar curve of her body a reminder of what they still had. The rain softened outside, a lullaby to their fragile truce. As they stood there, the apartment's warmth seeping back in, Alex felt the first stirrings of clarity. Mark's excuses wouldn't hold water, not with Jamie's account corroborating the chaos, but confronting him meant unraveling years of trust, facing the man who'd been like a brother. The obstacle loomed large, not just the affair but the fracture in their circle, the questions about loyalty that no amount of talking could fully mend. Yet, with Jamie's support, the path forward felt less like a void and more like a bridge, shaky but crossable. They moved to the bedroom eventually, the air still heavy with vanilla and unease. Jamie stripped the sheets without a word, bundling them into the hamper, a practical act of reclamation. Alex watched, his heart aching with the normalcy of it all, the way she tucked fresh linens with efficient tucks, her movements a balm. They slid under the covers side by side, not touching, but close enough to hear each other's breathing, even out. Sleep came fitfully, dreams laced with echoes of laughter and shadowed closets. Morning light filtered through the blinds, grey and tentative. As Alex woke to the scent of coffee brewing, Jamie was already up, her silhouette in the kitchen a promise of facing the day together. The storm had passed, leaving Seattle washed clean, but the real tempest waited, with Mark, with the truths yet to surface. Alex swung his legs over the bed's edge, steeling himself. Personal growth wasn't born in comfort, it forged in the fire of hard conversations. And today he'd walk through it. The morning sun struggled through Seattle's persistent overcast, casting a diffused glow over the kitchen where Jamie poured coffee into mismatched mugs. The aroma mingled with the faint earthy scent of rain-soaked evergreens, wafting from the cracked window. A reminder that the city was stirring back to life after the night's deluge. Alex sat at the small breakfast table, his fingers tracing the wood grain absent-mindedly, the events of the previous day replaying like a looped surveillance tape. His head throbbed faintly from the whiskey, but the real ache was deeper, a bruise on his trust that no aspirin could touch. Jamie slid a mug across to him, her movements careful, as if testing the air between them. She wore jeans and a simple hoodie now, her hair tied back, the exhaustion from her shift and the drama etched in the shadows under her eyes. "Black, like you like it," she said softly, settling into the chair opposite. No forced cheer, just quiet solidarity. "Mark texted me at dawn. He's at his place in Capitol Hill. Wants to meet." Alex nodded, sipping the hot liquid, its bitterness grounding him. Capitol Hill, Seattle's eclectic heart, with its vibrant street art, coffee shops overflowing onto sidewalks, and an undercurrent of bohemian chaos that Mark had always thrived in. The neighborhood suited his carefree vibe, or so Alex had thought. Now it felt like a stage for confrontation. "Let's go after breakfast. No delays." His voice was steady, but inside doubt flickered. What if Mark spun more lies? What if the friendship he'd clung to for over a decade crumbled irreparably? They ate in companionable silence, oatmeal with a scattering of blueberries from the fridge, the kind of simple meal that anchored their routine. Jamie's foot brushed his under the table, a subtle reassurance, and he didn't pull away. The drive downtown took them through familiar routes, the bustling arteries of I-5, lined with towering pines, and the occasional glimpse of Lake Union shimmering under the weak light. Traffic hummed with the Monday rush, commuters in Priuses and delivery vans dodging potholes filled with yesterday's rain. Alex gripped the wheel tighter as they veered toward Capitol Hill, the streets narrowing into a maze of Victorian houses painted in bold colors, bike lanes clogged with riders in neon gear. Mark's apartment was on a tree-lined block off Pike Street, a converted craftsman with a porch cluttered by potted ferns and a mismatched Adirondack chair. The air carried the buzz of a nearby espresso stand, where baristas called out orders amid the chatter of young professionals grabbing lattes. Alex parked curbside, the engine ticking as it cooled, mirroring his rising tension. Jamie squeezed his hand before they stepped out. "We're in this," she murmured, her nurse's resolve shining through the worry. Mark answered the door on the second knock, his usual stubble unkempt, eyes bloodshot behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a faded band tee and sweatpants, the apartment behind him a disheveled bachelor pad, takeout containers on the coffee table, a laptop open to what looked like work emails. The space smelled of stale coffee and unwashed laundry, a far cry from the polished image Mark projected. "Alex, Jamie, come in." His voice was subdued, lacking its typical swagger, but he didn't meet their eyes fully. They filed into the living room, the worn couch sagging under their weight as they sat. Sunlight filtered through half-drawn blinds, highlighting dust motes dancing in the air like unspoken accusations. Mark paced to the window, overlooking a bustling sidewalk where pedestrians hurried past with umbrellas at the ready, the sky threatening more rain. "Look, I know why you're here, and I'm sorry, truly." Jamie leaned forward, her hands clasped in her lap. "Start from the beginning, Mark. No bullshit. Why our place? Why drag us into this?" He stopped pacing, rubbing the back of his neck, the gesture familiar from college days when he'd fess up to skipping classes. "Lisa and I, it's been off and on. Her place is tiny and my roommate's been crashing with his girlfriend. I needed somewhere private. You guys are always at work, so I figured." He trailed off, glancing at Alex, whose jaw tightened. "I didn't plan on Jamie coming home early. Or you, man. When she walked in, I panicked, pulled her aside, begged her to keep quiet till I could sort it, thought I could smooth it over. Explain it wasn't serious." Alex's laugh was sharp, devoid of humor. "Smooth it over? In our bed? With laughter echoing like it was some joke?" The words hung heavy, the betrayal raw. Rain began to patter against the window, soft at first, then building to a steady rhythm that amplified the room's tension. He pictured the scene again, the rumpled sheets, the stranger's hand on Mark's arm, and anger surged, hot and unfiltered. "You've been my brother, Mark, stood up at our wedding, and you use our home like a motel?" Mark's shoulders slumped, defeat etching lines on his face. He sank into an armchair, elbows on knees. "I screwed up, big time. Jealousy, maybe? Seeing you two so solid while my life's a revolving door. But that's no excuse." His eyes flicked to Jamie, apologetic. "I shouldn't have involved you, put you in that position. Lisa's gone, blocked her number last night. This ends now." The admission landed like a stone in still water, ripples of relief and sorrow spreading through Alex. No elaborate denial, just stark ownership. But the damage lingered, a fracture in the foundation of their bond. Jamie reached for Alex's hand again, her touch steadying him as the rain intensified, drumming on the roof like an impatient crowd. "It's not just about you ending it," she said firmly. "It's the trust you shattered. For both of us." Mark nodded, tears glistening but unshed. "I get it. If you want me out of your lives, I won't fight it. But Alex, our history. The late nights coding that app that tanked, the road trips to the Olympics, I hate that I poisoned that." Alex stood, the need to move overwhelming him. He crossed to the window, watching the street below where a couple ducked under a shared umbrella, laughing despite the downpour. Envy pricked him, not of Mark's freedom but of that unscarred connection. "History doesn't erase this. I need time. Space. No more crashing on our couch, no more bro excuses." His voice cracked on the last word, the loss acute. Personal growth demanded cutting ties that bound too tightly, even if it hurt like ripping off a bandage. Jamie rose too, her presence a quiet force. "We'll heal from this, but you have to face your own mess, Mark. Therapy, whatever it takes. Don't let it define you." The confrontation stretched another half hour, words tumbling out in fits, regrets, what-ifs, the slow unraveling of explanations. By the time they left, the rain had eased to a mist, cloaking Capitol Hill in a soft haze. The drive home was quieter, the weight lifted but not gone. Alex glanced at Jamie, her profile softened by the passing lights. "You were right to come with me," he said, breaking the silence. "Handled it like a pro." She smiled faintly, placing a hand on his knee. Team effort. And hey, we're stronger for it. No more hiding closets, literally or figuratively. Back in Queen Anne, the afternoon sun broke through sporadically, gilding the wet streets. They spent it reclaiming normalcy, a walk to the market for fresh bread and cheese, talking about everything and nothing, their dreams of a cabin in the Cascades, her upcoming shift rotations, his potential job switch to a less soul-crushing firm. Obstacles loomed, counseling sessions ahead, the awkward void where Mark's friendship had been. But with each shared glance the bond deepened, forged anew in honesty. As evening fell, the city lights twinkling like stars against the dusk, Alex pulled Jamie close on the couch. The apartment felt whole again, the vanilla candle flickering on the mantel. Betrayal had cracked them open, but in the mending they found resilience, a deeper love, tempered by trial. Seattle's rains would come and go, but they'd weather them together, roots entwined against the storm.